Hello everybody, welcome to Digital Charcuterie. My name is Andrew Fantasia. It's cold here in Canada. It's freezing cold. In fact, we're in the middle of what's known as a polar vortex. Let's warm up by talking about some board games. Before we do that though, let's pre-warm up for the warming up by talking about some fantasy books. Particularly these ones. These are called We Were Wizards, and I wrote them. I'm going to cover my face with them because you don't need to see my face. You need to see these beautiful, delectable golden, purple, and gray books called We Were Wizards. This one is the first one, Seekers of the Stones, and then Ghost of Wizards Past comes next. You can get these on Amazon right now. Anywhere in the world you live, you can pick up a hardcover or a paperback or an ebook of We Were Wizards. So check them out right now. I'll put a link to their purchase page in the description below. Help out an up-and-coming fantasy author today. Okay, pour yourself a cup of your favorite hot beverage. Join me, snuggle up in something warm. Unless you live, in a part of the world where it's hot, in which case, fan yourself, my friend. Chill out, relax, don't sweat it. We're talking about Annihilation. Uh-oh, that's kind of a scary word, but it is what it is. Let's hit the table and see what the Annihilation expansion has inside. This is what you all wanted to see, right? Annihilation, a 90s staple. Apparently you're supposed to destroy all expectations, too, when you watch it. No, we all know why we're really here. We're really here for this. Although, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, you know what? I can't think of anything witty to say about this movie. This is a strange movie. Best thing about it is that Johnny Cage died at the beginning. I don't care for Johnny Cage. All right, let's take a look at the actual star of today's show. This is Annihilation, the expansion for Season 3 and our first expansion for Season 3. And I chose this one first because it is the most like an expansion for Season 1. It's the smallest. It's definitely going to have, I think it's safe to assume it's going to have the lowest points of any of the expansions from Season 3. So I figured we'll start with this one just to get that done. But that's not to say that I dislike this. On the contrary, I think Annihilation is a great little box full of original characters, and it made me excited when it was announced. All right, so we're going to flip it over. Ooh, I heard a lot of things rattling around inside. And we're going to read the back because that's part of what we do here on the deep dives. Crossing over from the negative zone came the Annihilation Wave, a vast army commanded by Annihilus, bent on conquering the positive matter universe. Trying to hold off the invasion, the Nova Corps was destroyed. Richard Rider, the only surviving Nova, is joined by Quasar, Moondragon, and Phyla-Vell. These cosmic champions must stand united against the Annihilation Wave. That's what we're looking at inside. Wow, look at that. I just realized this is my first time really looking at the picture of all 4 core boxes lined up together because a Marvel United core box is needed to enjoy this expansion. That's groovy. I'm just, how cool it would be if we ever get to, Season 4, which we will, I really hope. And eventually, if Season 4 has 2 core boxes, kind of like what DC had, just imagine one of their expansions having 6 core boxes lined up on the back. That would be something special. I really like this. Okay, let's turn that back over. And hopefully not everything is completely loosey-goosey now that I've done that, but we will take the lid off and take a peek at the contents inside the Annihilation box. And this is also our first time having a box with Leslie Bibb on the cover. That joke was made especially for you, Ryan. I know you're watching this. All right, here we go. Okay, so here's our rules leaflet. And it's just one little page giving you all the good info that you need to know. Any special rules? There's an optional rule for veterans. That's interesting. I've actually never read that. But that's only if you use the complication cards. So that's why that's there. And then the little tokens that you are getting there with some explanation of how they work. Okay, and we'll talk about the complication cards momentarily. But let's open this first. Those nice Season 3 plastic inserts. Very, very sturdy compared to the other 2 seasons. And we're knocking on the door of this box, and the ones who are answering are the 4 locations. The Annihilation box is going to come with the following locations: Harvester of Sorrow, which looks like a gigantic beehive, which makes me very uneasy. I don't like this location at all. It's mean, it's nasty, but you can use it if you want. And Krelar is also in the box, followed by Nova Corps Headquarters, which I guess you can put next to Xandar, because they kind of go hand in hand, and Arthros, which has monsters on it. Those are monsters. In fact, that's a giant spider. I just realized that is not trees or plant life. It's a giant spider. Wow. I will not go to Arthros, thank you very much. But I'd still rather go to Arthros than be near that thing. Okay, so let's put this aside. And we have underneath that our lone villain dashboard from this box. Annihilation is the villain who comes inside. He's got a tiny bit of special setup, just saying he cannot begin in Arthros. That's it. And then all of his goodies, including his Annihilation tracker. I have not faced him yet, so I'm not going to look too deeply myself at what he does, because I still want to surprise myself, but feel free to read it or pause it or, take a gander for your own. I'm not going to stop you, and we'll set that aside there and take a look at his cards now, which are all here, like so. And Annihilus has this guy named Ravenous, who's a bad dude, and then some of his Annihilus Seekers as threats, as henchmen. And there is his deck, raring to go. Very simple, nothing fancy here. 12 cards, 6 threats, a couple of henchmen, a couple of other things. Nice little healthy mix. Before I get to that, let's go to the other side where the heroes are hiding out. We have all these heroes here, which include Phyla-Vell and Quasar and Moondragon and Nova Prime. Okay, so Nova Prime is first. I really like the brown they use at the back of his cards, and I kind of wish they kept that on this side, but this is fine. And this is the Nova I grew up with, kids. This is Richard Rider, who is the only Nova I knew about until Frankie Ray. And the other Nova that came in Season 1, I didn't even realize that wasn't Richard Rider. I didn't even know that was another person. So we can add him to the list of characters that Marvel United taught me about, which is neat. And there's Nova Prime. Gorgeous. And I think I mentioned this when I did the unboxing, but his art looks like it was done by a different artist. Something about his art is just, it's a little bit off. Not in a bad way, just in a way that's different from the rest of United. Maybe I'm wrong, but I got that vibe from him. Moondragon is the daughter of Drax the Destroyer. And this is what her cards look like. Very green. She's bald and she's got psychic powers. Or, psionic powers. That's different from psychic because it has an N in it. Here's Quasar now. He's got a nice cape. I'm just going to see if my lighting can get a little bit better. It's a little better, but not by much. He's got a nice cape, and he's got stars inside of it, which unfortunately gets a little lost in translation when we're dealing with a miniature, but I'm sure painters everywhere have had a blast fixing that and making it pop more. Quasar has a very, very fun mechanic with the wild tokens. I've played with him a couple times now. Great stuff. And finally, Phyla-Vell with the coolest sword in the whole Season 3 campaign. And that's saying something, because the sword game in Marvel, wow. It was some strong sword game, but nothing beats this Phyla-Vell sword. And I think it says here on one of her cards what it's called, because Quantum Sword. Yeah, I just remember seeing that before. Quantum Sword. Beautiful. All right. Now, as you can see, there are also tokens that will come in the box. You have these Nova tokens, which are these ones here. And I believe you use them whenever Nova Prime is being used. I could be wrong. I haven't used him in a while, but I believe that's what those are for. These yellow ones are called charge tokens, and those are used for the Harvester of Sorrow. So you put one of these at the end of each villain turn. You put a charge token on the Harvester of Sorrow, and then when it has 3, you burn a Master Plan card. So it makes the game harder. Thanks, Harvester of Sorrow. Finally, underneath here are your complications and your challenge card. So the complication cards is a separate little new addition that they added that you can add to the game to make things a little bit more difficult. So you shuffle these into the Master Plan deck, and then as soon as one is on top, as soon as it's on top, like you don't wait till the next villain turn, you place a face up near the play area and immediately apply its effects, and there's an exclamation point there to show you that they mean business. So let's flip this one over. The effect is tougher than they look. As long as this card is in play, heroes must forfeit 1 punch action during their turn, if possible. and you discard it when a hero defeats 2 or more thugs in a single turn. That sounds very hard to do. Wow. So, complications. Let's do one more random one here. Let's see what this one says. Travel light. Effect. As long as this card is in play, each hero can't have more than 1 action token at any time. They must immediately discard tokens in excess. Discard when all missions have been completed. That sounds a little more doable than the other one. But there you go. Something to add to the game to make it a little bit more challenging, if challenge is what you're after. So I have not played with those yet. There's still a lot of stuff in Season 3 I haven't touched. There's also a challenge card in here, and that challenge is the Complications Challenge. So the setup is, you can add this to any game. You add up to 4 random complication cards to the Master Plan deck, and it tells you exactly where to put them. And also multiple ones may be in effect at the same time, which is chilling to think about. But there you go. You can add that as a challenge for yourself. If I was drawing random challenges and that was the one I drew, I'll admit that sounds like one of the most difficult ones. But at least it sounds fun. It sounds like a nice wrench to be thrown into the equation. So let's take a look at miniatures now. And I think I will say that my least favorite miniature, which is the one we'll start with, is Nova Prime. Here's Nova Prime. He's putting up his dukes. Or maybe he's just showing off his gloves. He's like, hey, I got these really nice icy toners at the store, at the space store the other day. You want to check them out? But it's a very nice figure. They got the helmet really, really well. He's standing on some rocks, and that's about it. That's Nova Prime. Nothing too crazy or outlandish about it, but it's a good solid miniature. I will next move on to Moondragon. And I really like how dynamic that stance is. Moondragon is just leaning forward and doing a slight little jab. And she's got a high collar and a cape. It's cool to see these, in my opinion, C-tier Marvel characters. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's like the most popular character ever. I don't know. But it's cool to see these C-tier Marvel characters get love. So everything about this box puts a smile on my face. I think it's great. And she looks terrific. All right. After her, I will go with Annihilation as my next favorite mini. Whoops. Sorry, I almost dropped him. There is Annihilation. Never knew much about this character. I saw one episode of Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the cartoon, and he was the bad guy in it. Other than that, he didn't pop up much in the cards for me. I don't think he was in the animated series growing up, so I only know about him through word of mouth. You know, through like Wizard Magazine would bring him up a lot, and I'd be like, okay, I guess there's a really important bad guy named Annihilation. But that's a very cool miniature. And I don't know, I know he's like insectoid, but I don't know if he has a mind, like if he's cunning or if he's just sort of bestial and acts on insect instinct, which I think might be even more terrifying. I like that he has wings, so that's a plus. After Annihilation, I'm going to have to go with Quasar. Just because he's got that great Superman pose going on there. If we zoom in on his cape, there's not exactly any texture to indicate that there are stars back there, but again, that's a job for the painters. But I really like the way Quasar is shown here. There's just something very important and heroic about the way they posed him. Wonderful cape. His hair looks good. He looks powerful. Very, very nice. And finally, my favorite one in the box has got to be Phyla-Vell, because man, that quantum sword is a ton of fun. And just seeing her holding that, ready to swing it, this feels like you could take this figurine exactly as it is and drop it into, let's say, Arcadia Quest, and she would fit right in. I absolutely love this. And you can kind of see the white, the thing on her eye, but it's a little difficult to make out. And she was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, even though she was just a little girl. But that's fantastic. You can see the box through the holes in her sword. Look at that. Wonderful. So that, my friends, is the Annihilation box. it's time to pack stuff up, and I have one villain from the stretch goal box that I also store in here. So let's put him back in now, and that villain is Blastar. Okay, he comes with a negative zone card. I add Blastar in here because he is a cosmic, spacey-wacy, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey villain, and this is a very cosmic, spacey, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey box. So here are Blastar's effects. I keep him in here just to have extra space in the other box. And I have not faced off against Blastar either, so I have no idea what he can do. But he seems like a big meanie. There we go. We're going to just drop those guys right there. And then we're going to put the Annihilation locations back from whence they came. And last but not least, we'll get the plastic back on top. Whoa! Plastic is harder to grab with one hand than I thought. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, not a huge jam-packed box. I mean, you saw how much space is left over in there, and that's even after I added an extra guy. So there's definitely going to be a lower points number on here than you're going to see for the majority of this season. But that's not to say that this box isn't a ton of fun, because in my opinion, it certainly is. Let's go count points now. This box is going to net you 5 new miniatures. None of them are special, so that just evens out to a nice crisp 5 points. 4 of those miniatures are heroes, and one of them is a big bad villain. On top of that, you are getting 4 locations, and that gives you 2 more points. Then you have the complications cards. Oh, and by the way, these complications cards actually represent something that we haven't quite seen before. So they've kind of become a new category. The closest thing we've seen to this is maybe the Danger Room cards in First Class, but I think that was its own thing too, where essentially Season 3 gives us a few of these things that you can use on their own, and also as a challenge, which is separate. We rank the challenges as their own separate entity. So I've delineated these things, which are just miscellaneous Season 3 goodies, in this teal color here, just to help them stand out on the list. But look forward to seeing more of these as Season 3 progresses. As well as the Complications Challenge, which will grant you another point. Add all that together, and you have 15 points of juicy worthiness. Definitely the smallest box in this season, but still overall, considering the cool characters you're getting, and that complication stuff is pretty rad, I don't see anything wrong with that. Okay, that'll do it for today. That was Annihilation, and that's Mortal Kombat Annihilation, funnily enough. Man, I am glad Johnny Cage died at the beginning. My boy Raiden is the only one I cared about. Anyways, I will see you all here next week for the next Marvel United Deep Dive, which will be a little interesting because we're going to take a detour at some point during that video, and you'll see what I mean when that comes up. So see you next time, my friends, as we continue to make the wait for DC Superheroes United a little bit shorter and a whole lot sweeter. I'll see you next time.